Hello 6303. In this video I'm going to show you how to move from reading for a review of literature to writing one. Prior to watching this instructional video, you want to make sure that you have completed all Module 2 assignments, including charting at least 4 of the sources that you have read to answer your research question. You also want to have your Word document formatted to APA style, and you can find out how to do that in the Module 2 folder. You might be wondering why we are starting with the themes and not the introduction. When writing, teachers will often tell you to start with the introduction. However, writing an introduction before you have even written up the data or the evidence does not make a lot of sense because you do not know what you're going to write about yet. So we're going to start with the themes so we can construct our evidence from the ground up instead of trying to make our evidence match what we've written in the introduction. Later, you will go back and add an introduction that prepares your reader for the evidence you are going to present in your review of literature. Your review of literature is basically going to be an argument. You want to show the reader that you're a credible researcher who has read existing studies to determine the next course of action. In this review of literature, you want to synthesize information rather than summarize because you're showing your reader that you can come to your own conclusion about information on your topic. In this video, that's what I'm going to show you how to do, how to synthesize that information using the labels you created while charting your sources. The first thing that I'm going to do is physically move the labels and corresponding information from my chart to my APA formatted Word document. I'm going to make sure that all of my labels are in the same spot. In this screenshot, you can see a time-lapse version of me making those movements from the chart to the page. And as I'm making those movements, I'm making decisions about how my information is organized. I'm noticing that I'm probably going to want to talk about emergent literacy, motor skills associated with handwriting, as well as cognitive skills associated with handwriting first to prepare my reader. Then I'm going to want to move into strategies about how to use handwriting in connection with literacy skills. And I'll include things like the teacher perceptions of the strategies that I'm going to talk about in Theme 2. I'm also copying and pasting that APA citation of the article into my references section so that I have that component taken care of. In this time-lapse screen clip, you're going to see me making a lot of decisions about my writing. I go back and I read each piece of evidence under the label, and I consider how those pieces of evidence can be merged together to create a new idea. So I select a piece of evidence, I plug it into my paragraph, I think about how I can add to that. Sometimes I'm adding to that from the knowledge that I have in my head, and other times I'm adding to that from the knowledge that I've gained from the reading, from those citations that I've listed under my labels. When I use the knowledge in my head, I put in parentheses need citation because I know that to make myself credible, I've got to go and find a source that says what I know from my personal experience. When I use a piece of evidence from my chart, I move it up to the paragraph that I'm working on and I add the internal citation. Then I go and delete that evidence so I know not to be redundant. As I write, I am constantly reading and rereading what I've written and what evidence that I've copied and pasted from the chart. I do this because I'm trying to figure out different ways these pieces of information connect. This paragraph that I wrote for you in the time lapse took me about 12 minutes to write. So I want you to dedicate a lot of time this week to actually drafting your Theme 1 and Theme 2. You're going to have to make a lot of decisions as you write. You're going to have to step away from your writing, and you're going to have to come back to it to see if it makes sense. When I start my next paragraph, I know that I need a topic sentence to talk about motor skills, but I'm not ready to make that topic sentence yet. So I just make a placeholder and I just type, let's talk about motor skills. Later I'll go back and delete that and replace it with a more academically appropriate phrase that transitions my reader from paragraph 1 to paragraph 2. If you slowed this screen recording down, you'll see that I'm doing a lot of chopping of the evidence. I start with one piece. Specifically, I'm working with the Barrientos 2007 article, but then as I go back and read what I'm writing and then reread the evidence that I've copied and pasted from my chart, I notice that Lynn says a lot of the same things about motor skills. So I'm chopping up those pieces of evidence and merging them together to form my own thoughts about using motor skills in handwriting. That's the synthesizing that I'm talking about. If I would have just stated Barrios said this and Lynn said this, I would be summarizing the information. But by chopping it up and rearranging it into my own ideas, I'm synthesizing it. You can see that writing up your themes is going to take a considerable amount of time and thought, so be sure to budget that this week. As you start drafting those themes for this module, remember that your goal is to have a basic outline formed, start writing that up and merging all of that into a cohesive argument. It's okay if your writing is really messy at first. It's okay if it doesn't make a lot of sense. The point is to get your thoughts together. Allow yourself time to revise your draft multiple times. You want to check it for clarity first. Does it make sense to you? Have somebody else read it. You can share it with a peer in the class. You can share it with a partner at home or a family member, but check and say, does it make sense? You don't know anything about this topic. Does the way I'm writing it make sense to you? Once you have some words on the page that you've spent some time developing, watch the next video in this module where I break apart a completed review of literature and show you the traits that I expect you to include in these two themes. There's also a trait checklist in the Module 3 folder that you can refer to. You're going to want to go back again, reread what you have written, and revise to include those traits. The last thing that you want to do with this draft of the two themes is to revise it for APA format. You can refer back to the Module 2 PowerPoint, the must-knows of APA style, or to your APA manual for guidance. Finally, submit the drafts of your theme. This is for a participation grade, so we're not expecting the drafts to be absolutely perfect. This is a chance for us as your instructor to provide you feedback on what you need help with. So be specific in what you want us to look at when you submit this draft. That's all for this video. Remember to email us through course messages in Blackboard if you have any questions.